Click the links to send me art, comics, beanies for the homeless, or support the channel. Somebody said something about me begging for free comics. That's half the reason I started making videos. So see, people would send me free comics, weed, and whiskey. I wanted comics, I got comics and art, and I am extremely grateful. So far, the weed and whiskey has been a little light, so if you guys could get on that, hashtag roll a joint for Bianca. Oh, and send me a wide-angle lens for my S5. Thanks. I'm listening to Cridious and Antonio. What the F? What I'm hearing is a guy who's either dumb or doesn't understand business or just makes incredibly poor decisions. He spent the money on rent, car insurance, and he bought comicsgate comics books. He doesn't have any money, but he bought comic books. He seemed to think spending his tax refund money on comicsgate books was okay. Then he spent the campaign money on rent. That is insane. Don't start a campaign if you aren't stable financially. You need to have external hard drives. You might need to subscribe to a cloud backup storage. You got to have DVDs to burn them to. You might need a flash card memory. You need to have these things, and you need money to buy. What if your laptop dies? What if your external hard drive goes kaput? You got to have a new scanner. What happens if the phone dies? You got to have some money set aside for those kind of things. You need to respect the customer. You don't use the money to pay rent. If you're in that situation, you are stealing the money. He spent money on advertising on podcasts. That is absolutely pointless. All your advertising is free on YouTube. You have the best platform in the world, EVS's platform. That is 90% of the work is done for you on EVS's platform. And then you also have all the other comicsgate platforms, which admittedly in 2018 was a little light, but in 2019 and 2020 there's a whole lot more. I don't know if the campaign stayed in demand because that would allow you to keep slowly building funds, just keep going on other people's podcast or other people's YouTube channels. Anyway, he said something like he was hiring people for art, colors, lettering, editing, and afterwards started to do the math. You do the math before you start the project. He's a writer, but I read his tweets. I don't know if I should say this. And he is pretty much, I won't say that. Okay, he's not the best writer from what I read. So why is he writing it in the first place if he doesn't know basic grammar? You don't need to pay editors for a comic book. Edit it yourself, then send it to people in Comicsgate. You'll find people who edit it for you for free as a favor. You keep their names on a list of people you owe favors to. When the second book comes out, if you can afford it, you send them a free comic. Or at the very least, you thank them in the comic. If you legitimately can't write, then why are you trying to write a comic book? It sounds like English is not his first language. I'll skip that. Anyway, I'm listening to this and I'm getting pissed off, but I'm not too pissed because I think he's legitimately just a dumb guy. He would probably admit that he knows he's not too bright. He mentioned taking a loan to finish the book. This is taking a secured debt to pay off an unsecured debt. Don't do that. People want their books or they want the money back. They do not want you to take a secured debt to do so. That's not, people don't want their books, their money back that bad. He spent thousands of dollars on covers, posters, ads, fonts, and editing. $3,000 to $4,000 on absolutely unnecessary stuff. Part of this is on the buyer, and how do I say this carefully? Part is on Ethan. The buyer needs to look at somebody selling a 130-page book and ask some questions. How big is your YouTube channel? Where do you work? How much time do you have to work on the project? What's your financial situation? If you're out of work and you have kids or you're washing cars and driving Uber, then you aren't in the financial position to do a book. It sucks, but it's probably reality. Figure out what a book costs and set that out as your goal. For a 132-page book, you got to figure out the simple math. I'm just going to estimate here. Say the art is $200 to $300 a page, colors $100, letters, I don't know. So anywhere from $300 to $500 a page. For example, at $300 a page, it comes out to $40,000 for a 132-page book. Plus add in the printing and shipping. That's $40,000 just for the intellectual property. Either you raise the money or you have the $20,000 in the bank to cover it yourself and plan on selling more books, which I guess you can do if you're in demand. 132-page book, it might need a minimum of $60,000 to be profitable, or solidly profitable at the beginning. For example, say a 50-page book done on the cheap, art for $200 a page, colors 100, I don't know what the letters are, say $300. That's $15,000 for 50 pages before publishing and shipping. Your first book, you might want to make it black and white. Don't pay $2,000 for covers and posters, or $500 on ads, or $7,000 to $10,000 on rent and car insurance. All that is absolutely freaking insane. Oh, Clint Stoker's first book, Downcast, which you see on the right, was $15. He raised $30,000. I doubt he made much money, if any, but he proved that he could put a book in your hands, that he's trustworthy. The book doesn't look as good as Lone Star or Cyberfrog, but those guys are pros, and Downcast was much less. It's also a more mature comic, more steampunk and less Robo-Toads and Captain America. What is on the buyer and what is on Mike Miller and EVS? Is the buyer relying to his detriment on Ethan's promoting a comic or the fact that Mike is working with Cridious, on the assumption that if they trust him enough to do business with him, so should you? Are they jointly and severably responsible? What was Ethan and Mike's duty of care to the buyers? They both benefited financially from their dealings with Cridious. Actually, it's an interesting legal question to liability and negligence, because I believe that the terms of the Indigo contract are such that the seller is not liable for breach of contract, but I haven't read the contract or any cases on it because I don't want to. So in crowdfunding, you aren't necessarily forming a legal contract, you're more along the lines of making a donation. So it would be an interesting analysis to see if third parties could be held liable when the initial party, Cridious, could not. Probably. It would depend on levels of intent, but it's a moot point, really, because nobody is going to sue EVS in a class action, not for $35. Who cares about the legal issues? What about the ethical ones? Should there be some sort of disclaimer before a channel promotes a campaign? And no, I don't think that's necessary. YouTube shows are usually pretty clear about this. They do several campaign interviews a week. It's clear from the context that it's just a simple interview. But it wouldn't hurt the interviewer to mention that you need to read the terms before you back a project. At the bottom of Kickstarter, it tells you that Kickstarter doesn't guarantee performance, so that cuts them out of the equation. Whether or not the seller is liable, I guess you'd have to check the seller's promises and the applicable law. Again, it's a moot point. Those sellers usually just don't have the money. You can't get blood from a stone. It's called being judgment proof. Failures like this hurt comicsgate because it looks like a complete ripoff. Cyberfrog was a short book. Stealing Solo, Stardust, over here on the left, were garbage, but at least you got something. Someone said Critious' punishment should be make him read Stardust on a live stream. It's pretty bad. This is actually a ripoff. He took $40,000, he paid his rent and bills, and the buyers ended up with absolutely nothing. I actually think EVS did have a duty to ask some questions about people's financial situations when promoting first-time campaigns. He's really the only person who is in the position to do so, and I mean anyone who is doing an interview, doing a promotion of a book. They need to ask some basic questions. If people found out that Cridious was broke, they would have said, get a job, come back in a year or two after you're more stable financially. Because otherwise the temptation to dip into this is, in law, for attorneys have a rules of professional responsibility against commingling funds and the fiduciary duty to the client. And that is like the financial breaches of trust for, lawyers and accountants and people who you're trusting with other people's money. That's the most serious things that will get you debarred or delicensed from an accountant. So I think it's the responsibility of the person who's doing the promotion, who's doing the interviews, just to ask a few questions. Otherwise, if people are thinking that if this guy's on Ethan's show, he must be trustworthy. It wouldn't take much for someone experienced with crowdfunding to write up a one-page checklist of do's and don'ts. For example, Martina of Lady Alchemy, she got excited and shipped out some stuff before the books were ready. That mistake cost her thousands of dollars. You only ship once. Rules for the first campaign are keep it simple. No alternative covers or stickers and posters. Just make a book. All that stuff costs money that you don't have. Paying Mike Miller over $1,000 for a cover and poster is insane. The fact that Mike accepted it is also a little bit hard to fathom. I hope he doesn't hear this, but that seemed to me like a bit shady. But if he does hear it, I'm sure he'll respond in the comments. Maybe EVS was right. Mike Miller has some evil in him. But, to be fair, Cridious is an adult, and Mike's an adult. A very avarice one. He's got kids to feed, San Diego, but I don't know. First time campaigner charging him $1,000 for a cover. Doesn't EVS do covers for free? It's like, I don't know. I don't know much about the industry, but I also don't want to be soft on Mike just because I like him. I don't want to. It just seems a little shady to me. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, guys, and I will see you all next episode. Oh, if you want to send me a beanie for the homeless Christmas 2020, or a pair of socks or protein bar, whatever, I'll be passing that stuff out. Or send me art. Enter the art contest. And I don't know, maybe at 500 subs, we'll rank all the art, which is like a half dozen artists. And I was thinking the artists could pick in order of their winning the preference for the books they want, and I could mail these books out. I'm sure the shipping is a bitch, though. I don't think I'll be mailing this one out because it's not very good. The art is good. The art's good. I like this black and white style, but the story feels like it's written by a 20-year-old because it's written by a 20-year-old. I wanted to talk about this. I got a minute. Okay. Downcast is an excellent example. I think the first campaign cost $15. The second one is $20, and the shipping wasn't that bad either. It's a good, mature story for adults. It was out on time, and he raised $3,000, which is not a lot of money, but it was a success. This is Blue Mom. I don't want to show too much of it because she's nudie on the cover. And like I said, I'm not really into the adult stuff because not because I'm not into adult stuff, but because it just seems to limit your audience. It's just, there's just no need for it. I mean, you put a half-naked girl, put her in a skirt and a pair of tight pants. It's like, well, she's almost naked anyway. It's like, you just don't need to do that to your audience to make it so small. It's the difference between like a $20,000 campaign and making like 2 or 3 times as much with a more mainstream thing. So I figured these were like levels of cheaper campaigns. This was, I think, $15. This was, I don't know what it was, $8 or something. I think Stardust was like $8 too. And this is just, I don't know. It's like, I read Starbucks and I kind of looked at it, it's not ready. It's just not, I wouldn't have promoted it. It just wasn't ready, but it all depends what it cost. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it would depend what it costs to see what it's worth. The thing is, the shipping is the bitch. Another thing I want to say is, if say you're buying 3 books, say you're buying, like, why don't a bunch of people get together and set up a matrix calendar type thing? Like rows and columns matrix, like math, and say, okay, why don't we get like 5 guys together? We'll all get books printed and published at the same place, shipped by the same fulfillment company, and for $25 instead of $125 plus, $10 to $15 shipping per individual book, you could do cut everyone a break. Say, okay, we'll do the books $20 each, and then we'll charge full price for the shipping, but full price for 5 books shipped is a whole hell of a lot cheaper than full price for 5 individual books. And all it requires is that 5 or 6 guys get together and decide to do it. It's not that hard. And it could be a tier in the campaign where, hey, this is the the $100 tier, the $150 tier, you get the 5 books plus everything included. I mean, if it makes sense financial, it seems like it would because you save on shipping, so why not do it? Anyway, just ideas. Guys, tell me what you think in the comments, and I know you will. Because you're not shy at all. All right, guys, I will see you next episode.